Hi, welcome to week 17 of Clare's Club, Living in Your Centre. I'm still getting used to the name adjustment. Actually, I'd love to hear from you as to whether you prefer the title Living in Your Centre, whether that feels more accurate, or whether Clare's Club has kind of stuck with you. So this is step 6. So we're at step 6 of the 7 steps of self-transformation. And this is that part where we sort of feel like, even though we've been in emptiness, that there is a sense of a new energy arriving. And, the metaphor is the dawn breaking, a returning home, but to a new home, like one that you've really wanted to live in for a long time. So it's an exciting feeling and it's an exciting energy. And I actually thought, because I just thought of it the other day, that I wanted to share with you a poem that's actually more about the moment just before this. So we've been in a sort of gestation period at this point. So I'm going to read this to you. And I performed it actually at St James's Cathedral or Church in Piccadilly in London a number of years ago. And I'm not sure that it actually has a title. I think of it as the germination poem. I hear a whisper in my ear, the time of germination's near. I look around for signs of life. I'm met with the silence of a deep, dark night. The birds are quiet, the trees are bare. The vibrance of life is still in there. In there is the heart of all that beats. In there is a rhythm not quite complete. We, on the earth, are holding our breath whilst the mother we rest on arranges her bed. The question we ask is, which way should I turn? We wait for an answer. We find there is none. For this is the time when we journey alone, in the silence of Hades, our winter home. This is the time when we're rife with self-doubt. This is the time where we search a way out. But we must not lose hope in this tunnel of night, while we wait for our hearts to be filled with the light. There will be a time to rejoice once again, this communion of grace between God, Goddess, and man. Once the dawn is established, then everything turns. Once the sun starts to rise, then we're free to go home. So whilst it is dark and we fight with despair, let's touch our hearts with a smile, and we'll find God in there. So I always battle with the idea of God, but you might not. So instead of calling it God, I call it universe, spirit, all that is, the great love, all of those things, goddess. But really it seems like it would be strange to say goddess and not God as well. But the point is, that's the moment just before. And it's quite nice to have a poem that speaks to that sense of loneliness and concern. But the feeling of the barren moment. But spring has arrived. I mean, we're really in spring right now. And as I mentioned last week, I'm finding that I'm actually in sync with these steps, which I'm finding quite interesting, that synchronicity. So the feeling of spring has arrived for me. I've finished teaching for the semester. I start again in about 6 weeks. But I'll be a different person by then, as will you. So I'm wondering what that feeling of spring is for you. And if you need any help finding it, like, do you know what your passions are? Do you know what brings you alive inside? Do you know what makes you feel like you're outside of the rules, so that you're no longer bound by convention? Do you recognize the feeling of despair, and then the feeling after that, of having found something of yourself, having found you in a way that feels really, really exciting. It could feel very quietly exciting. It's not necessarily loud, but it's that sense that the brewing has turned to fermenting, which has turned to a certain readiness to begin to look for signs. And as it is with spring, we look for signs in the ground of the crocuses or the different flowers emerging. So it is within us that we start to get this amazing sense of arising, a sort of clarity that there is an arising. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we know for sure what we're doing next yet, but it means we're on the verge of it. And so this is where our patience has begun to pay off. Our sense of duty to truth begins to reward us. And it's really the most exciting point in a book, where you're about to turn the page and find out what really happened. That's as far as the book goes. But as far as our lives go, it's like we're turning that page to find out how good it's going to be next. And with the anticipation, for good reason, by the way, with the anticipation that it's going to be just so much better than anything we've had before. And that seems to be how the cycles work. If we're paying attention, if we're being courageously patient and brave and listening, really listening. So you've had a poem, you've had some words. I'm just going to do a tiny bit of toning, so feel free to join me. So spring is here, new energy is arising, it is informing us, the form is beginning to reveal itself. Listen, journal, watch for signs, watch for serendipities and synchronicities. Those always seem to be signs to me, especially if there's 3 of them. So have a look for 3 coincidences around a single message, and see what the form is going to be. I know for me, I'm beginning to set up gigs, concerts, healing events. I have the frame of mind now to do that, and that feels really good to me. So I really encourage you to tap into the things that you know feel good to you, stuff that you might have already considered on this journey together. So, lots of love to you, and I'll see you next week. And please feel free to email me with comments, questions, requests, feedback, anything. Just share where you're at. Okay, see you again. See you next week. Bye.